The bigger picture, teaching abroad as a freedom strategy. Today we're going to talk about how to teach abroad, my honest experience teaching in China versus teaching in Thailand, and how teaching abroad can be your strategy to living or designing a freedom lifestyle. Let's get into it. If you are interested in teaching abroad, first I'm really going to say think about your goals and your why. What do you want out of this experience? And really do some research on cost of living, the type of place you want to live in. But also, if money and savings is your goal, go teach in China. If you just want the experience to be living somewhere where it doesn't get cold and the cost of living is low, then choose Thailand. They both have their pros and cons. And as we continue to get into this, I'll let you know which one's my favorite and why. Teaching abroad changed my life. And not in the way that you may think, but everybody wants freedom. Whether it's time, location, financial, creative, mental, emotional, or spiritual. Everybody wants their own version of freedom. But what if I told you that teaching abroad could actually be your first step to freedom? I've taught in both China and Thailand, and they were both two completely different experiences, and they both led me on this journey to designing a life of freedom. Let's get into it. When I graduated from college back in 2018, I knew that I wanted to travel, and that was one of the reasons why I chose to move to China. I didn't realize until like a couple of months into my journey there that what I really wanted was to build a freedom lifestyle. I wanted to build a life that gave me control over my time. Now I'm going to take you all through that process and what it could look like for you and for me when I made the decision to come and teach abroad in China the first time. That was back in 2018 after I had graduated college. I did it very intentionally. It was about traveling and creating a space for me to grow. So China gave me my first taste of international work and making income internationally and cushion for saving. I saved up $10,000 in my first 2 years teaching in China. The first year I wasn't saving, but going into the second year, that is when I saved up $10,000 teaching English. Took that money, moved to Thailand, lived there for a year, and that is where I got into digital marketing, built my digital marketing skills. One thing China also showed me is that money without time and location freedom isn't freedom at all, which I did have more time freedom than I had back in the States, and I had more that I could do with my money because of the cost of living in China was much lower in the States. And my company also gave me a stipend for housing, so there was a lot that I was able to do during that time. And as we get into the difference between teaching in China versus teaching in Thailand, of course, for me, the number one will always be China because of how much I was able to make and save in that amount of time. So if you are just thinking about moving abroad specifically to save, choose China. If you're looking just for an experience that is more tropical, a lower cost of living, because of course Thailand is a lower cost of living than China, but China is still a lower cost of living than living in America. So just weigh your pros and cons and what your goals are. So in 2020, after I left China and moved to Thailand, it was during COVID. But that gave me the opportunity where I actually truly experienced time freedom, financial freedom, creative freedom, and did all of the things that I wanted to do during that time, build up my skills so I could work and live remotely. And I feel as though that taste of freedom that I experienced then is what was basically laid the foundation for the work that I'm doing now. Once you have that experience for yourself, like what freedom actually feels like, you're going to want and can keep longing for that. So it's best to try to start designing and optimizing your life for the lifestyle that you want long term. And of course, I didn't just move abroad for fun. When I decided after I graduated college and I moved to China, it was not just for fun. Honestly, I wanted to travel. That was my major goal. But during that time, I realized for myself, I wanted to live and work remotely. I wanted more freedom. And of course, the money was great, but I wanted more freedom. I wanted more. I wanted to do things with my creative gifts and talents. And that's what also led me to relocating to Thailand during that time. Teaching abroad in China gave me structure. It gave me discipline. That was the time where I was able to save up the most money. I was very disciplined with my spending, with my saving, and just being intentional with my day-to-day and with me skill building. I was skill stacking during that time, learning different things like video editing, photography, videography, because those are things that allowed me to be creative. And also, in the long term, led me into the digital marketing field. And also, when I made a decision to move to China to teach, it wasn't about, I never had in my mind that I was going to teach forever. That was never my goal. I just knew that it was an avenue for the goals that I had later on. And I knew that I could take the time for myself, take a step back. And I know a lot of people don't have the opportunity in life to take a step back from whatever their life is, from the stresses in life back in the U.S. or, whatever you're going through, whatever your day-to-day life is, changing your habits, changing your routines, and creating a different lifestyle. I knew that it would give me the opportunity to figure out what it is that I really and truly wanted to do in life and, and how I could use my skills creatively to make income. That's the goal. So when I moved to Thailand, moved to Phuket, that really gave me time to film, time to document, time to sit and learn digital marketing. And I taught myself myself everything, built my portfolio, and then start taking on clients, freelancing. And then from that, I relocated back to the States. China versus Thailand, which is better for freedom builders? Let's get into it. And if you're really thinking about it, China is for stacking money, and I feel like Thailand is for designing freedom. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, back when I was living in China, my salary a month, I was making about $4,000 a month, and my rent at that time was $300. And now I was paying that because I also had roommates, so I was paying that every 3 months. So I really was able to save money my second year there. Because my first year, what was I making? A little less than that, but it still was like great money to live, work, and explore, buy whatever I wanted. And it gives you the opportunity, I feel as though really China more so the opportunity to do more with your money because of the low cost of living, and as well as like what we're getting paid as Americans living in China, period. It's best if you want to save money. If you want to save money, if you want to feel like you're living more of a luxury lifestyle than you living in the US because of the high cost of living, China should be your first option. In Thailand, especially for teaching, the income is lower, especially if you're not working at an international school or anything like that. Currently making $1,300 a month, which, you know, for the most part, my rent is $300 a month, so that's not necessarily bad. And I don't need much, you know. I basically budget, have discipline, life is good. But it just depends on like your goals and the lifestyle that you want and desire to live, and how disciplined you are with your money and your spending. Also, honestly, when I was working, teaching in China, I feel as though it was way more structured. Well, no, I feel like it's structured here in Thailand as well, but I also feel as though the places where I worked specifically in China, there was more technology involved, and like the teaching process making it more fun for the students, as opposed to here in Thailand. We don't really have a lot of technology. We have the projectors, so that's like we just do what we can with what we have. The Wi-Fi is not working. We found another cafe, but it's still like wonky. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's like a whole community thing, but today the Wi-Fi is just, it's not Wi-Fiing. Oh my goodness. Also, I would say when it comes to freedom and how I feel as though it's same in China and Thailand. I feel as though I had a lot of creative freedom. I did have a lot of time freedom. Like it was just really in financial for the most part. I was in a great stable place, but more so in China because of the higher income, which is always going to be a plus depending on your goals. But this time around, of course, I moved to Thailand, and it was more so for the opportunity for me to be able to work on my creative projects and also build something while having a low cost income, having a low cost of living, which was important to me during this time, especially as I'm working on my freelancing and growing my freelance business into a creative media agency, as well as transitioning into tech full time. Such a process, but you know, you got to do it in the best way that works for you. Also, as far as visas, in China, initially the company I went in with, they did absolutely everything for me when it came to visas, but you have to get your visa for teaching abroad, especially if you don't have a work permit and have never worked there, while you were still in your home country, or if like you're applying from another country because you're already abroad. You got to make sure you have all of your paperwork, all of your documents, and a big part of the documents, you have to have your degree, and you have to get it apostilled. That's a whole process when you're trying to work and teach in China. You have to get all of your things authenticated according to their standards, as well as your birth certificate. It was like a whole process. Like they'll send you an application. Like it's just so much that you have to do. You actually have to physically go into these offices. So there's a lot of logistics that goes into it when you're trying to teach in China. So depending on how much time you got and how committed you are to whatever your journey is, that also will be another factor. You also need like a police or FBI background check before going to China. That's something they require to go with like their application and the jobs you're going to get. They need all of these things, and these things will also have to be apostilled. You can look that up. A lot of paperwork. You're also going to need recommendation letters. You're going to need a lot of stuff, and just really just be on your stuff. Thailand, I feel as though, has been less strict as far as some of those things. You don't have to get anything apostilled. You just got to have copies of your things and you show it to them. It's all a process, but you got to see like what are your goals? What is it that you really want to bring it forth? And in Thailand, I didn't get my visa till I was already here and working for my company. So they was doing all the process, had it going, but they didn't require me to be outside of the country before getting everything started with the school and the visa process. So that's also like a difference. I will say it again. China is for stacking money if that is your goal. And Thailand is for designing your freedom lifestyle, because it gives you the time, the low cost of living, and just being around other creatives and people who are like-minded. It just gives you the opportunity to work on building something while not having to stress about paying high bills. If your goal is to build a creative business, learn tech, or do anything that or find balance, Thailand is the place for you. That's the place for you to go.